Today we're going to be using upcycled materials easily found around the home. We're going to be creating something memorable and beautiful that you can display. It's also really fun and it probably takes about 45 minutes to make one of these. And the idea is that you might want to put this in public view at home to say thanks to key food workers and also to show solidarity with the community by weaving together. So this is an example of one that I've made using different plastic bags. You can go quite crazy with the patterns. This is another one that's a bit more expressive. I'm now going to run through the equipment that you need. So for the loom, we are going to need a food packaging. The best one to use is a spreadable butter tub. This is because the plastic is quite durable. And it has this great ridge here, which is kind of what you're looking for so that the yarn can sit nicely at the edges of the box. The second best option would be an egg box, which is also good, except these tend to fray a bit, so you can only really use this once as a loom. Or you can be creative and find something yourself to use. I've also tried it out with the pot noodle. Here you kind of cut the pot noodle in half and then you take off the circular base, and that enables you to put grooves here and here, which I'll show you how to later. And then there is this rectangular window that you cut for your weaving to sit inside. As well as a loom of your choice, you will need a pair of scissors, a piece of masking tape, and a stick or a rod that your weaving will hang from. A pencil will also do if you can't find a stick, something about 12 centimeters. And you will also need 3 plastic bags of your choice. This will become the yarn which you use to weave. The kind of plastic bag that works well is something that has quite a scrunchy texture. So you can get quite creative with the plastic bags that you have. If you have any exciting ones lying at home, these are some that I've collected. You could use bags like this, but they are a bit harder to work with because they're just a little bit less soft. So you take your loom, and the first thing you need to do is to cut 8 equally measured slits on the 2 shorter sides of the box. Just go ahead and take your scissors, and what you want to do is to make sure that your snips don't go over this rim here. That's how your yarn is going to be held nice and securely in place. So just make 8 even slits. They don't need to be too perfect, top and bottom. So that should take you about up to this curved edge of the tub. And now we have our loom. The next step is to create your warp yarn. The warp is the yarn that is held in tension from top to bottom, which the weft will then run between. So you want to choose whatever colour you like for this. I'm going to go for a yellow bag. Fold them in half, then chop off the handles because you won't be able to use these bits. Then you roll the yarn, plastic bag, from bottom to top, and then you cut. You want your strips to be about 1 centimetre wide, or a bit more. And you're going to need 3 of these strips to create the warp yarn. Then you just take your little strip and unroll it, and you'll need about 3 of these lengths. It depends on plastic bag size. Tie your 3 strips together with double knots at the end. This is to make the correct length for your warp yarn. We can always neaten up our ends by chopping them off, so if you have big hanging tails, that's fine. We take our loom, and what we want to do is we want to place the yarn over the top of the box, and we slot it into this second from the left groove on the bottom. Then we take the end, we leave about a finger's length end, and we feed it underneath that slot, so it's now in the last groove, and we simply tie a double knot to secure that yarn in place. You don't want to tie it too tightly because it will need to slip off there when we've finished our piece. So then you take your yarn and you feed it in an S formation around the grooves, up and down the rest of your loom. The key is to not pull your yarn too tightly. It needs to have a bit of bounce. So now you should have something that looks like this, with some excess hanging off the end. You want to chop this off so you have about this much to work with to tie your knot. And same as before, tie a double knot. Now you can just chop these off with a little tail left to make sure the knots don't untie. And now you've warped up your loom. Now we're gonna start weaving. So it's the same process as before to create the yarn. You choose the plastic bag that you like, you fold it in half, chop off the handles, and then roll it from bottom to top. Same width strips. So you take your yarn, that's your weft yarn, which is the yarn that goes across, and you tie it onto the first warp yarn in a double knot. So to begin the weaving process, the basic principle is that you have to go behind, in front, behind, in front, behind. And then when you go back the other way, you need to make sure that the yarns you went behind, you now go in front. And that's the pattern. So I'll show you how to get started. Once you've tied on, you pull your yarn all the way through, and then you go back the other way. So you go round this one, so you can see on this corner one how that will look. And you can see the pattern starting to emerge. While you're weaving, the trick is to not pull this one too tightly across. If you do, the edges of your work will start to go inwards. You want to keep it nice and even. And every few layers, you want to comb your work all the way down with your fingers. And that's how we'll create a nice tight weave. So after a few rows of weaving and combing down with your fingers, you should end up with something like this. If you want to change yarn at any point during your weaving, take the next piece of yarn that you want to start working with and tie it onto the piece of yarn you're already working with at the end of your row. Then you simply trim the excess and you're ready to carry on with your new colours. When one of your pieces runs out, simply tie it off and continue working your next piece of yarn onto the end of this one. Remember to keep combing down your work. So now I'm getting to the end of my work. What you want to make sure is that you really fit as many rows as you can into this weaving. That's what's going to make it nice and tight and durable as well. So I'm going to try and fit at least 4 more rows in here. It can get a little bit fiddly, but just have patience. It will all pay off in the end. I've decided to add in a bit of black just for some contrast at the edge of my work. Okay, I finished my work and I am going to cut again about a finger length off the end of my yarn. What do you think? And then I take this length and tie it onto that last warp yarn with a double knot. So if you want to, you can trim any of these excess bits. Sometimes it looks quite nice to have quite a lot of extra stuff coming off. For example, here I added on a plait that I did. The nice thing about this material is that it actually works quite well if it's hung outside, in a tree or on your front door. So sometimes it is nice to have bits that can dangle in the wind. But it's up to you completely. This one, for example, is a lot neater. And here I've embellished this woven piece with a heart. So at this point, while your work is still on the loom, you can add a symbol if you'd like to. So chop off the excess bits, not too close to the knot so they don't come undone. And I'm going to show you how to make a symbol if you would like one. In order to make the symbol, you need the yarn to be a little bit more textured. So the way that we're going to do that is just to simply twist it. So take a yarn or a couple of yarn strands of colour that you like, and then with some tape, you tape it down and you just do a little twist. This will help it to stand out from the weaving. So you just knot both ends to stop that twist unraveling. Now we have a piece to embellish with. This is an optional step. If you're happy with it looking as it is, that's great. You want to roughly plan out how your embellishment might sit on your work, and then you simply weave it through the work. So I'm going to start at the bottom here, find a gap in the woven fabric, go behind, and then in front. And you just pick a few points where it can ground in the work going behind and then in front. Kind of shimmy it around, and then you can just put the excess yarn behind your work. So now I'm happy with how that looks. I'm going to take my work off the loom. Carefully, where these notches are, you lift them up slightly. Doesn't really matter if you start top or bottom. And you peel your warp yarn just straight off that notch. This will be the same whether you're using the pot noodle loom or the egg box loom. Just smooth it out slightly. Now, to make it into a hanging, like one of these, that you can easily hang either outside, just outside your home or in the window, you take your rod and you're going to weave it through the loops at the top of your work. Into the first loop, out the second loop, into the third loop, and out the fourth loop. If you want to trim the edges of your rod to match the size of your weaving, feel free. For the hanging part, it's quite nice if you choose a colour that's already in your work. And you can create a plaited hanging, you can do a twist like we did before with the pea, or you can just simply use one of your pieces of yarn. So today I'm going to do a blue and a black yarn, and I'm going to do a plait. Tape your pieces down. It's advisable if you are plaiting to use the lengths longer than you need because the plait will make them shorter. So here we go, I am plaiting for my hanging piece. And then tie the ends into a knot. What is quite nice at this stage is to slide one end of the stick through that knot before you tighten it, and that way the knot will hold the stick as well, so that it doesn't get too messy with too many knots. So there you go, that stick's quite nicely held in place. And then I've got the other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. So you put it into a knot. You slide the end of your stick or whatever rod you're using through the hole and tighten it. Again, if you like the tassels, great. If you want to chop them off, go for it. If you want to chop your stick shorter, whatever you like. I quite like mine. So there we go. And I'm gonna go and hang mine on my front door.